Is it? All right. It is 10 a.m. Deputy General Counsel, is there a quorum?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm calling to order the March 2019 meeting of the IHCDA Board of Directors. The first item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the February 28th, 2019 board meeting. Board, do you have any questions regarding the minutes? If not, may I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I wasn't here. Can I second it?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. All right, please welcome Peter Nelson to discuss a recommendation for bond volume 4% credits, Regency Park Apartments, phases 1 through 5.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have this and then the next two agenda items, so I hope everybody's had their caffeine this morning. So Regency Park Apartments is a rehab of an existing apartment complex. It was broken into 5 phases and submitted as 5 different applications to us, but will ultimately operate as one complex. The development represents a total cost of $36,588,932. In total, the 5 phases are requesting $19 million in bond volume, $1,276,118 in LIHTC annually for 10 years, and $1 million in Affordable Housing and Community Development Fund loans to create 304 units of affordable housing. B&H Affordable Housing is proposing the rehab of these units. They're on the south side of Indianapolis, on Epler between State Road 135 and Highway 31. The property contains 7 two-story townhome buildings and 6 two-story terrace-level apartment buildings. It'll consist of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Being on those highways and between those highways, they're going to have access to a number of amenities. The rehab will include updates to the kitchen, bathroom, countertops, appliances, new roofs and gutters, furnaces, water heater, plumbing. In addition, the development is working to build a sidewalk from the development to the east to Highway 31, where there's a bus stop right there. So not only the residents, but nearby neighbors will have access to that sidewalk. In addition, the applicant is working with the Hoosier Veterans Assistance Foundation, or HVAF, to designate 30 units to serve veterans. Per our application, working with service providers is something that comes more toward the final application end, so that's still in the works, but that's something that is definitely an improvement to the community and a benefit for this project. During the application round, we reviewed to make sure it met all of our criteria in the 2018-2019 Qualified Allocation Plan, and we were able to meet with the development team. They presented to the executive and real estate staff on February 11th. Some key performance indicators that we're tracking with these bond projects are just the total number of units that we are able to create or preserve. The table on the board memo shows everything that was created or preserved in the 2018 bond round, so any application submitted in 2018, which these applications were submitted in 2018 that I'll be going over today. But as you can see, we've created or preserved so far a total of 1,379 units of affordable housing. All in all, staff is recommending the total allocation of the bond volume, tax credits, and development fund for these 5 phases. I will, since they're broken into phases, have 5 resolutions for this, but I'm happy to take any questions at this point.
Board, do you have any questions? I don't think we have questions, Peter. We're ready for the first resolution.
Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolutions. First one Resolved that the board approve awarding $4,250,000 in bond volume, $285,044 in annual LIHTC to New Regency 1 LP for Regency Park Apartments Phase 1, according to the terms of the 2018 AB application round as recommended by staff.
All right, board, we have a resolution before us. I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move to approve.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve by June. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mark seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, motion carries. We'll go on to number 2, Peter.
Second, resolved that the board approve awarding $4,250,000 in bond volume and $284,647 in annual LIHTC to New Regency 2 LP for Regency Park Apartments Phase 2, according to the terms of the 2018 AB application round as recommended by staff.
Board, we have another motion in front of us. I would entertain a motion, another resolution in front of us. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Peter, number 3.
Resolved that the board approve awarding $3 million in bond volume and $202,733 in LIHTC to New Regency 3 LP for Regency Park Apartments Phase 3, according to the terms of the 2018 AB application round as recommended by staff.
Thank you. Board, we have another resolution. I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
A motion to approve by June. Is there a second? A second by Taylor. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Continue on.
Resolved that the board approve awarding $2,625,000 in bond volume, $179,091 in annual LIHTC, and an Affordable Housing and Community Development Fund loan not to exceed $500,000 to New Regency 4 LP for Regency Park Phase 4, according to the terms of the 2018 AB application round as recommended by staff.
Thank you, Board. Another resolution before us. I would take a motion.
You want to go?
Sure.
We all got to take. We have a motion to approve by Taylor. Is there a second?
A second.
June seconds. Further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
And resolved that the board approve awarding $4,875,000 in bond volume, $324,603 in annual LIHTC, and an Affordable Housing and Community Development Fund loan not to exceed $500,000 to New Regency 5 LP for Regency Park Apartments Phase 5, according to the terms of the 2018 AB application round as recommended by staff.
Thank you, Board. We have another resolution. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion to approve by Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
Double seconds.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you very much. And Peter also has a recommendation regarding the Carriage House Evansville, also bond volume 4% credits.
Yes, Carriage House Evansville is the 17th application we received in the 2018 round. It has a total development cost of just over $33 million, requesting $21,800,000 in bond volume and $1,168,024 in LIHTC annually for 10 years to preserve 307 units of affordable housing. These are the combination of Carriage House 1 and 2, which were originally developed and still owned by affiliates of the Gene B. Glick Company. Both of the projects have HAP contracts on them, so they're receiving project-based Section 8, and that will remain on the project. It consists of 24 residential buildings and 2 additional buildings that contain the office and clubhouse. The project is a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The 1 and 2 are in like the apartment style buildings, and then the 2 and 3 are in townhomes. The apartment community is within a half mile of a Green River Road Mets bus stop, which provides access to nearby amenities. Rehab for the project is going to include new kitchen cabinets, countertops, and appliances, bathroom cabinets and countertops, light fixtures, flooring, HVAC, windows, fencing, siding to the exterior. We reviewed this project to ensure it met the criteria set forth in the 2018-2019 Qualified Allocation Plan, and the development team was able to meet and present the project to members of the real estate and executive committees. And we are recommending the full allocation of the bond volume and tax credits for this project. Any questions for this one?
Board, any questions?
When was the original deal done?
So the project was first built, I think the first phase in 78, and then the second in 80. I'm not sure when the project-based Section 8 was put into it.
So they haven't been rehabbed than before since the original construction? Besides
that-
maybe some minor?
I think it's just minor upkeep since then.
Oh, wow, okay. Probably time.
Any other questions, Board? No. Peter, I think we're ready for your resolution.
Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve awarding $21,800,000 in bond volume and $1,168,024 in annual LIHTC to Glick Carriage House Evansville LP for Carriage House Evansville according to the terms of the 2018 AB application round as recommended by staff.
Thank you. Board, we have a resolution before us, and I would entertain a motion.
I move.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Taylor. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Peter, you're not going away yet. I know
Not yet.
you have a recommendation regarding bond volume 4% credits for Limestone Crossing Apartments.
Yes. This is another preservation project. It was the 19th application we received in 2018. Total development cost $26,169,922, requesting $18,890,000 in bond volume and $852,100 in LIHTC, preserving 208 units. This is a Herman and Kittle Properties development. It's the rehab of their old Canterbury House apartments in Bloomington. Currently, 34 of the units are market rate. Those will all be converted to affordable, so it'll be 100% affordable. Repairs on this are going to include replacement of the roof, HVAC, flooring, water heater, new counters, cabinets. They currently have washer and dryer hookups in the units, but they're going to supply washer and dryers in every unit as part of this upgrade. And then probably the biggest thing for the rehab is they're going to create 12 accessible units. The project didn't have enough initially, so they're going to add those and bring that up to where they should be. The development is located near a Bloomington transit bus stop, and so there's access to various local amenities for this project as well. During the round, we ensured it met our 2018-2019 QAP criteria, and they met with us on March 19th to present to the executive and real estate teams. And we are recommending the full requested allocation of bond volume and tax credits for this project.
Thank you. Board, do you have questions on this project? It doesn't seem so. We're ready for your resolution.
Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve awarding $18,890,000 in bond volume, $852,100 in annual LIHTC to Limestone Crossing Apartments LP for Limestone Crossing Apartments according to the terms of the 2018 AB allocation round as recommended by staff.
Thank you. Board, we have a resolution in front of us. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, and we have a motion to approve by Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
June seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Peter. You can sit down there. But we will please welcome Ellen Rakowski to discuss a recommendation regarding the 2020-2021 Qualified Allocation Plan.
Good morning, thank you.
Good morning.
Here to present the QAP for the next 2 years, the 2020-21 QAP. That time again already to do so. Just starting with a little bit of background, in accordance with Section 42 of the Internal Revenue Code, the QAP is a planning requirement that explains how states will allocate their low-income housing tax credits to produce new or rehabilitate existing affordable housing units. The QAP establishes thresholds, set-asides, evaluation factors, compliance requirements to target credits in a manner that's consistent with IHCDA's strategic plan. So the process formally began in December of last year. At that point, we invited, that was right after the tax credit round last year, if you recall. I made those recommendations in November, and then once we made those awards, we got to work on the next QAP. So in December, we invited, through a red notice, department notice that was sent out to our partners, inviting them to come in and meet with us, to schedule one-on-one meetings with IHCDA real estate staff to discuss the QAP. And we did that as we began to prepare for the next QAP, to get feedback on, what things the development community thought were good about the QAP, things that they had suggestions on, in order to give us a direction and thoughts as we began working on the first draft of the QAP. So we had about 12 to 15 developers who took us up on that and gave us some valuable feedback that helped propel us into the first draft. So following those meetings, we released 2 drafts of the QAP. We've done this now, I think, for the last 4 or 5 QAPs. What we did is we released the first draft on January 23rd. We released it, have a 2-week comment period, and then have a public meeting. We had a public hearing on January 29th here at IHCDA. Usually it's about an hour and a half. Developers have an opportunity to come in person, share their thoughts on what they see in the first draft of the QAP. Once we had that meeting and the comment period ended, we went back as a team and worked on a second draft of the QAP based on the feedback that we had received. February 15th is when we released the second draft of the QAP, and had a public hearing on February 26th to get feedback before we worked on finalizing the QAP. So based on the written comments, public comments, and continued internal policy discussions, modifications were made to the final draft, which we're presenting to you today. So you see in your packet, there's an Exhibit A that has a list of everything that all the main changes that we are proposing for the next QAP. I'm not going to read through all of these. I'm going to highlight a few of the, I think, more high-level changes that I do want to point out. So starting with the bond program, we did increase the amounts. You see we had 3 bond requests today. We're having a lot of activity there, but we are recommending to increase the maximum bond amount per deal to $35 million. Previously it was $25 million. I think this is just something that we had not adjusted in quite some time. It also, I think, will help us with any special initiatives that we may work on over the next year or two, to give us that flexibility to do larger deals if we work on something that where that would seem appropriate. Regarding the set-asides, we adjusted on the qualified not-for-profit set-aside, so that's one of our 10 set-asides. We adjusted the minimum developer fee that the not-for-profit is required to receive. So oftentimes in this set-aside, not-for-profits partner with for-profits to put together deals, and we wanted to ensure that that had not been adjusted, that the not-for-profit receives their fair share. This is based on public comment that the 35% threshold helps to ensure that that increases over time at the appropriate level. Also in set-asides, we updated the workforce housing set-aside in the counties that would qualify. So in the 2018-19 QAP, we identified 9 counties that would qualify for the set-aside. The only changes for this QAP is we're removing 3 counties that had an allocation of credits through the set-aside in 2018 and 2019, and keeping the other 6. So we felt as if it's important to, because there had not been any activity in those 6 counties, to continue to prioritize those counties when it comes to workforce housing. Also in set-asides, we put a notice for our general set-aside. The general set-aside is a 10% discretionary set-aside that we use. We've used that for moving forward for the last 4 years. But we typically announce in the spring how we're going to use it for the current year. And we are now proposing that we have a public hearing to get input from our partners as to how we should use that set aside. I think in the interest in being transparent and hearing what the development community feels as if should be a priority. Whereas previously, we didn't have a formal process for that to happen. Some of the high-level threshold changes that we're recommending. One is in regards to a project's right to request a qualified contract. Basically, a project's right to request to be released from the tax credit program and have the restrictions released after year 15. What we're doing in this QAP is waiving that right. So any deal that comes in has to irrevocably waive their right to request that contract, which would allow them to, in most cases, exit the program. And we're doing this, there had not been a restriction previously. Years ago, we had that as a scoring category. But we're adding this as to be consistent, I think, with what we're seeing on the national level among many HFAs across the country. And through discussions, that there's a concern that this right is causing affordable units to be lost. And we want to follow, I think, the trend that many HFAs are following to ensure that when you enter into this program, you're committing to 30 years, the 15-year initial compliance period, and then the extended use period. So that's a pretty significant change that we're implementing, but I think we have the support around the country through NCHA especially to follow that, to ensure that these units do remain affordable over time. Also within threshold, we increased the developer fee that the developers can earn. We had not increased that in a number of years. We did a 15% increase across the board for 9% projects. So for the competitive applications, 15%, they earn fees based on how many units that they do. So for example, in a new construction deal under the old QAP, we get $20,000 per unit for the first 20 tax credit units, and then an additional $15,500 for the next 35. What we did is we increased that by 15%. So now it's $23,000 per unit for the first 20, $17,825 for the next 35. And then the overall cap previously was $1.2 million. We raised that by 15%, so it's now at $1.38 million. And that was based on both the combination of having not adjusted that and in comments from the developers. I think it makes sense to recognize and reward the risk. There's a lot of risk in putting these deals together, and we want to be at a point where the developer fee that you earn in Indiana is very close or similar to what developers can earn in other states. One last, I guess, then jumping ahead to some scoring highlights. We added a few new categories, but we did also adjust one of our categories. The categories promotes neighborhood stabilization. So it's one of the ways that we try to incentivize developments in the type of development that's going to not just provide housing, but stabilize the neighborhood. And we incentivize gray field redevelopment. So gray fields are formerly retail, old shopping centers, strip malls, businesses that are no longer operating, that leave vacant shells, but still underlying infrastructure. So we tightened the definition of that. This is, again, to ensure that projects that are coming in that are trying to claim these points are truly gray field. We had found that quite a few projects were qualifying, but weren't necessarily, the definition was too broad, having the impact that we were hoping to have by looking at addressing gray fields in communities. Many of them have them now, former retails that have left, to just ensure that that category is really getting at what we're trying to accomplish there. As far as a few new scoring categories, one is with our category related to federally assisted revitalization awards. We highlight, I think, 4 or 5 different types of awards that if projects bring this award as part of their deal, they can get points. We have Okra's Blight Clearance Program as an addition in this QAP. It's similar to Indiana Housing's Blight Elimination Program, but this is one that Okra operates that has, I think it has the same, really the same intent, same effect on the community, so we added that as a specific example of a program that would qualify for those points. New categories also, we added a category for access to internet. So this is something we feel as if is important. I know it's a state initiative as far as making sure that communities have access to broadband. So we're incentivizing developers to do this. You can get points for providing a commitment to provide the necessary infrastructure, or additional points if you go as far as to provide that free high-speed internet in each unit and also in the common areas within the development. We also added a new scoring category for leveraging opportunity zones. So the opportunity zone is a fairly new thing. I think there's a lot of discussion and research on how this is going to work. But we wanted to reward developers who have found ways to make the Opportunity Zone benefit their projects. So the scoring category would give points to a development that has a commitment from an Opportunity Zone fund, but not just a commitment, but a way to demonstrate that this is enhancing the project and thereby reducing the amount of funding they need to request from IHCDA. So that's I think our attempt to highlight or to have opportunity zones in our QAP, recognizing that there's still a lot to be learned about these, but certainly those that have gone so far as to have a fund that benefits the project, there certainly is, I think, a need to reward them for that. And then the last new scoring category I'll highlight is the reducing the impact of eviction scoring category. So we'll be awarding points for developments that commit to create an eviction prevention plan, and additional points for developments that go so far as to agree to not screen out applicants who have been evicted, evictions that were 12 or more months ago from the time that they're applying for the housing in their development. So really trying to work to make sure that eviction is really seen as a last resort, and working with the tenants to ensure that they have access to the stable housing. So those are the high-level changes I want to highlight. The last thing I'll highlight before I go to the resolution are just some comments that we received that led to further discussion and how IHCDA handled those. So these fall into three categories. The first one are comments that we received, but we decided not to take action on. So this is one related to the infill new construction housing category. So this is a 6-point category where if you're building new in what qualifies as an infill site, you can get points for that. We have excluded agricultural land in that. We have done that because we feel as if there's still a lot of land or sites within urban cores that have been previously developed that are suffering from disinvestment, and that's where you have, I think, could have the greatest impact. You're not just providing new housing on former agricultural land, but you're providing housing in the core of cities and towns that have had developments previously but have suffered from that development leaving. So we had frequent comments that agricultural land should qualify. At this point, like I said, we feel as if there's still plentiful supply of sites around the state that would qualify as infill without needing to go into agricultural land or build more suburban type developments on areas that are not within the urban core. But we are going to study this. We're going to look at this further because it's a comment that we get quite frequently. We're going to look into what are other states doing, and should we make an adjustment as we move into the next QAP? We'll engage the Indiana Affordable Housing Council, also our developers, as we look into this and see. We hear you, but we're not at a point quite yet where we want to make that recommendation, but we will consider that for the future. The second area are comments where we had areas where we had frequent comments and we decided to make some modifications. So this was in relation to opportunity zones. As I had mentioned, we had the new opportunity zone scoring category. When we introduced this, we were pretty bold. We had it as a pretty high scoring category, high point value compared to other things in the QAP, and also a pretty high threshold to get these points. And we heard from developers that this is a new thing. There's a lot of unknowns about it. Now, how exactly is this going to work? Do we really want to incentivize this before a lot of information is out there? So we did go back and modify the category. We lowered the point value to make it align a little more closely with some of the other areas in the QAP we felt were equal in value, and lowered the threshold to qualify for this. But as I mentioned earlier, we still want to have this, and we're kind of, I think, out on the edge of this as far as promoting in the QAP. And again, those that have worked a way to show a benefit of opportunity zones should definitely be rewarded for that. And then the last category are comments considered, and then we took action as far as comments that we had in the first and second drafts of the QAP. So as I mentioned earlier, projects have to waive their right for a qualified contract, so waiving their right to exit the program after year 15. That's a threshold requirement now that we're recommending. In the first and second drafts, we also had a negative point category, so that not only would you have to waive your right, but any projects that you currently operate that may have been funded over the last 25, 30 years, that request a qualified contract would result in negative points in a future application. So this is, again, a direction that many states are going across the country. But in working with our developers, they were cautious. I think they felt that this was a little bit too much too soon, somewhat harsh, and that there could be instances where they can make the case that it makes sense for a project to leave the program. So projects may leave the program if they're suffering or the project's not financially feasible anymore and they want to be able to convert the rents to market. So we, after the second draft of the QAP, agreed that we can holding off on this point, I think makes sense. Let's look at it further. We know that there's some legislation in the works that is also working to address the qualified contract issue. And establishing a threshold requirement for projects moving forward is a good first step. As far as negative points, we can hold off on that and spend some more time learning about that, studying it, seeing what happens at the legislative front. And then, if nothing else, I think we've served notice that this could be a direction we're heading in the future, but we'll pause on that and make sure we have more information before we proceed. So those are, I know I just said a lot. I think at this point, before I pause for questions, I do want to acknowledge the staff members that worked. It wasn't just myself. It was a team of 4 staff members that worked together on getting this QAP to the point it is today. Matt Rayburn, Jerry Bain, and Peter Nelson joined me on this QAP writing committee. We spent many hours together carefully considering the comments, debating what really is, I think, the best direction for this QAP. So I want to definitely recommend them, or commend them for the work that they've put together as a team to get to where we are today. So with that, I'll pause for any questions that any of you may have.
Board, do you have any questions?
Ellen, you said, will this be the first time you will bring people together for public comment? You indicated that you were going to, under the general, that you would notify people. How do you notify? Well, how do you, and what kind of reception do you think you'll get on that?
Yeah, this is the first time. The general set-aside's been in the QAP for many years, and it really has been more of a discretionary. But this will be the first time we're actually going to hold a public meeting to get input. And the way that we do that is we typically put out basically a real estate department notice or a public notice that we post on our website, but then also we have distribution lists that will make sure that our partners have this message come directly to them. We're usually about a month in advance or so. I think we're looking to hopefully do this sometime in April. Indicate that we're going to have a public hearing here at IHCDA. The QAP, the developing community has seen our first 2 drafts of the QAP, so I think they'll know that this is coming. But just to give them a chance to share with us what they think we should do with the general set-aside. As I mentioned, we've used Moving Forward program for the last 4 years. Prior to that, we did some innovative awards. But we want to, the development community has told us that they want us to keep this set aside, but I think what we've heard is that they also want to give a little more input on how we should use it.
Any further questions, Board? No? I guess we're ready for your resolution.
Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approve the 2020-2021 qualified allocation plan and its submission to Governor Eric Holcomb as recommended by staff.
Thank you. Board, we have a resolution. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and I just want to commend you too. That looks like it was a tremendous amount of work and very thorough and well done.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And one more comment, I think it's great you involve the developers and the people that are actually doing the work.
Right.
That
Yeah.
collaboration is going to help them make a better finished
Yeah, I
product.
mean, I agree. As I mentioned, we have an internal committee that writes it, but really without developer feedback, it would not be nearly as effective. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, please welcome Ryan Hamlet to discuss a recommendation regarding the Choto Pre-Development Loan, Blue River Services, Inc.
Good morning, Board.
Good morning.
I am Ryan Hamlet, Real Estate Production Analyst for Southern Indiana, and I am here to seek the approval for a Choto Pre-Development Loan for Blue River Services in the amount of $30,000. Each year, IHCDA utilizes our allocated home investment partnership funds to aid development of affordable housing throughout the state. We're required to set aside 15% of home funds for projects developed by community housing development organizations, or CHODOs. CHODOs must meet organizational criteria as outlined by HUD, and they must recertify or certify with every home activity with us. One of the benefits of being a CHODO is the ability to request a pre-development loan either in the form of a site control loan, which can help fund early development costs before they've acquired a site, or seed money loans, which can offset pre-construction costs after they've acquired a site. These loans have a maximum of $30,000, a interest rate of 0%, and a 24-month term. Each year, we set aside a portion of the funds set aside for CHODOs for pre-development loans, which are available on a rolling basis until they're expended. IHCDA staff reviews the applications for each of these loans to ensure that the proposed uses are eligible under home regulations. Blue River Services out of Cord, Indiana is requesting $30,000 site control loan to assist in their pre-development activities related to Palmyra Apartments, four-building apartment complex in Palmyra, which is about 12 miles north of Corydon in Harrison County. The project for which they will apply for home funds in the future round they'll apply for home funds in a future round to renovate and preserve 24 units of affordable housing for residents of Harrison County. These loans have been somewhat underutilized by our partners in recent years, so that kind of affects our ability to track their efficacy, but we've recently increased our outreach to grow our kind of bullpen of CHODOs, thanks in part to our public ally, Judy Denby. With those efforts in mind, our key performance indicators moving forward will be to track any number of changes of certified CHODOs that we have and versus pre-development loan applications that we see, as well as to track how often these projects are successfully funded in our competitive home rounds. And this time I'd be happy to entertain any questions you have.
Board, do you have questions? Does an entity ever receive both kinds of CHODO loans, the site control and seed money?
We've not seen that in the past. I don't believe that they can do both in the same project. Is that they can? All right, they can, but we've
And
not
that is-
done that recently.
Okay, I was just wondering. Any other questions, Board? I think we're ready for the resolution.
Absolutely. Staff respectfully requests the board to approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approve home funding in the form of a pre-development loan in an amount not to exceed $30,000 to Blue River Services Incorporated as recommended by staff.
Board, we have a resolution. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion to approve by Mark. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by June. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right, we have Matt Rayburn to present a Persons with Disabilities update. Thank you, Matt.
Absolutely. Good morning, board. We are going to have a PowerPoint presentation if you'd like to reconfigure. As we set that up, before I jump into the slides that I've prepared today, the reason that we put this program update for this month on giving an update on how we're serving persons with disabilities is every year, March is Disability Awareness Month. And in the state of Indiana, the Governor's Council for Persons with Disabilities does a really good job each year with an awareness campaign. So if you, I know March is almost done, but if you have not paid attention to the 2019 campaign, I would recommend going to the Governor Council's website. Their campaign this year is called Be Cool Because We Are, and they've done a great job of highlighting persons with disabilities throughout the state. There's about a minute video that you can watch. There's some great print materials as well. And the message is really persons with disabilities saying, when you approach us, just act cool, treat us like you would treat anyone else. And they've done a really good job with that campaign. So IHCDA is happy to be a partner with them and doing a number of work on disability awareness issues. So with that, I'll jump into our program update though. So I could certainly spend all day talking about how different programs we have that serve persons with disabilities. Really almost every program that IHCDA has in some way has touched persons with disabilities, but for the sake of time this morning, especially since I knew Alan would get excited about the QAP and talk to you about that for quite a while, I've had to narrow it down to just 3 key programs, so we're going to highlight those programs. But before we jumped into that, I did want to very quickly tie this into the IHCDA strategic plan. I think it's important to continue bringing information to the board about how we are thinking about our initiatives and how it relates to that 4-year strategic plan. So as we think about specifically serving persons with disabilities, I think there are 2 major areas in the strategic plan that this falls under. And the first is at the very beginning of our plan, we talk about the values that we hold ourselves to with our programs and our staff at IHCDA. And one of those values is fairness. And we define fairness as including people of all demographics in IHCDA programs, which is all about maximizing choice and affirmatively furthering fair housing. So we really see the issue of making sure that our programs are serving persons of all abilities as part of our desire to make sure our programs are fair and inclusive. And then when you look specifically at the strategies and the action steps we've identified in our strategic plan, item 4.2 says that one of IHCDA's goals for that 4-year period is to develop and strengthen intentional partnerships to reach identified prioritized populations. And one of those prioritized populations is certainly persons with disabilities. And hopefully this morning I'm going to highlight a few efforts to show how we are developing new and existing partnerships to better serve that population. So with that context in mind, the first program I wanted to talk about this morning is Ramp Up Indiana. Ramp Up Indiana is a program that IHCDA launched kind of in a pilot phase in 2016, and then with public input from the disability advocacy groups, made some tweaks and launched as a permanent program in 2017. And the idea of Ramp Up Indiana is any nonprofit in the state that serves persons with disabilities can apply to IHCDA for up to a $25,000 grant. These grants are made out of the Development Fund with approval from the Development Fund Advisory Committee for IHCDA to have delegated authority to make these small grants. So this is a rolling round. A nonprofit can apply at any time for up to $25,000, and those funds are to be used to identify homeowners in their community who are at or below 80% of area median income, and to then construct a ramp or install a pre-built ramp on the home. So this is all about identifying homeowners who are struggling with access in and out of the home. It's not interior repairs to the home. It's all about entrance and exit to make sure that individuals are allowed to age in place and that simply being able to get in and out of the house is not a barrier. So in addition to the ramp itself, the ramp up funds can also do things like modifying the threshold entrance to the door so there's not a step up into the door, modifying the door hardware, so having perhaps a levered handle that's easier to open for a person with a disability instead of a traditional knob, or widening the door if it needs to be widened for wheelchair accessibility. So it's all about that door. The homeowner gets to choose what door. It can be any door to the house, front, back, a garage door, whichever door they're going to use the most. So this is a program that we launched trying to say, we know we do a lot of owner-occupied rehab work already. That's usually, while it does touch some accessibility, those are often larger life safety issues with the home or bigger repairs like roof, water heating, those types of systems. So we wanted to develop this program a couple of years ago to say this is specifically about accessibility for persons with physical disabilities. So the numbers that I have up on the screen are what we have done so far. So to date, kind of over the last 2 years, we have funded 5 nonprofits. Those nonprofits have committed to creating at least 77 ramps in the state, and we have awarded $125,000. We still have a decent amount of money available. The board authorized us to use $600,000 of funds for the Ramp Up program, so there's $475,000 left. We are doing a lot of active outreach and engagement on this program. Danny Miller is our production analyst lead who reviews the applications and is doing outreach efforts for us along with our marketing and communications team. I do a lot of work with the disability advocacy groups as well, so I know we're in conversations right now with, we just heard some new ones this morning actually, so there's about 6 or 7 nonprofits that we're in talks with right now trying to get to apply for the funds throughout the state. But we are happy that only 2 years into the program, we've already got 77 ramps that have been built or are under construction right now. And one of the exciting things too is we're starting to see that some of those first nonprofits, Area 4 is a good example, they have now completed their initial round and they're about to come back in and apply for a second round. So as they're completing the homes, once they've expended that initial $25,000, nonprofits are eligible to come back and ask for more. So we think this is having good impact. From IHCDA's perspective, it's a relatively small investment, but a major impact for the homeowner, and we're getting some good statewide coverage already with the counties you see up here on the slides. Moving along, the second program I wanted to talk about this morning is related to the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program and our QAP. So in the 2018-2019 QAP, we introduced a new set-aside where we held 10% of our credits back for what we call the Community Integration Set-Aside. So back in 2017, when our QAP writing team was kind of thinking about it was time to introduce some new set-asides, we were looking at some data and looking at our existing tax credit portfolio and trying to think about what are the vulnerable populations in the state that we've not done a good job of serving. We've done a lot of work around using tax credits for supportive housing for people experiencing homelessness. We have for years in the QAP had a lot of threshold requirements and scoring categories about physical accessibility for persons with physical disabilities. But we realized we had really done a poor job of using our housing programs to try and incentivize housing for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And in talking with the State Office of Disability and Rehabilitative Services, which is a sub Office under FSSA, they gave us data and agreed that yes, our clients with intellectual and developmental disabilities have a huge barrier in trying to access housing. So we got really excited about the opportunity to use the QAP to promote that type of housing and wrote this new set aside. So the community integration set aside, to be eligible for those 10% of credits, the developer has to commit that they will hold 20 to 25% of the units in their development for households in which at least one person has an intellectual or developmental disability. That could be the adult, the head of house, it could be a child. We set that 20 to 25%. We don't want the set aside to incentivize developments that are segregated for only persons with disabilities, because we want to integrate persons with disabilities into the community as a whole. So the idea is that 20 to 25% ensures there will be a variety of people in the building, and we're not creating more of a group home or a congregate type setting. Before we launched this set aside, we got feedback from FSSA through the Disability Office. We worked with the Governor's Council for Persons with Disabilities, the Back Home in Indiana Alliance, which is the advocacy group for housing for persons with disabilities in the state. They've all been great supporters of this set aside and really saw the need. So what I have on the slides, I'm going to go through 2 slides, just saying now that the 2018-2019 QAP is done, what were the results? So here on the first slide, you see for the 2018 allocation year, we were able to fund 3 developments that committed to using this model. One in Tippecanoe County, one that was partially in Allen and partially in Whitley County, and then another one that was entirely in Allen County. Those 3 developments are creating a total of 125 affordable units, 28 of which are committed for the target population. What was very exciting to see was a year later, in 2019, we were able to fund twice as many of these, and that was without increasing the set aside. So what happened was, a year later, our developers have really, we've really seen them embrace this model. They're doing a better job of engaging with service agencies. So part of the requirement of applying for the community integration set aside is you have to have an MOU in place with a local service agency who can help refer clients to the housing, and then once they are housed, help them with supportive services to keep them stably housed. So in 2018, this was a very new set aside. So we had less developers who were prepared and ready to do this housing, but still 3 we were very happy with. And then that jump is, from 3 applications creating 28 units. In 2019, we funded 6 applications that will do community integration that will be creating 315 total affordable units, 65 of which will be for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So for a brand new initiative in just that 2-year QAP cycle, we had never tried this before, but we've got 93 community integration units that have been funded and committed. And our next step on this is twofold. One, we have gone and talked to those same partners to make sure that they're still interested in supporting our work on this. They very much are. The development community is interested in continuing to develop this. So the 2020-2021 QAP that you just approved under Allen's recommendation continues to have this 10% set aside, and we believe we'll continue to see good numbers of units being created through that. And the other thing that we're excited about is later this year, we're working on the date, but it'll be late summer or early fall. We're going to do a partnership with FSSA as well as CSH, the Corporation for Supportive Housing. CSH in Indiana has very much focused on our homelessness efforts and has been a great partner of ours for over 10 years. But nationally, especially in Illinois, actually, CSH does a lot of work around taking that supportive housing model of affordable housing with on-site services and serving the IDD population. So CSH, FSSA, and IHCDA are going to put on a collaborative training this fall that will focus on the development teams that we have funded, these 9 teams, bringing them together as they're working right now on closing on their financing and getting their projects under construction. We want to work with them now to start planning ahead for what are best practices for serving this population in an affordable housing setting, and helping them start planning ahead for good property management practices and how to do supportive services. So we're really excited. This is an area we're going to continue to commit through, not just through the funding, but bringing good technical assistance and national thought leaders in to make sure our partners are not only building these units, but providing the highest quality housing as possible. And finally, the last program I wanted to touch on today is the Section 811 Mainstream Voucher Program. So Section 811 is essentially a variation of the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program, which IHCDA has administered for a number of years. But back in late spring of 2018, HUD released a funding notice of funding availability, announcing that they were making special Section 811 vouchers available for a competitive process. So the Section 811 version of the voucher program are rental assistance vouchers specifically for persons under age 62 with a disability. So IHCDA saw this as a great opportunity to expand our work around housing for persons with disabilities, and as a complement to what we already had, kind of an old version of this program called the NED, or non-elderly disabled vouchers, which we have 300 of those vouchers that we've had for a number of years. So we applied under the competitive NOFA. The response to HUD was pretty overwhelming, with public housing authorities across the country really wanting this money. So the awards were all pretty small. We were excited, though, that we were successful in our application. HUD awarded us 25 vouchers. So that may sound small, but that's going to make a big impact on the 25 individuals who end up getting those vouchers. Now, what we see, and this really supports the need, and I think these numbers are important for the board as we think about the affordable housing needs of persons with disabilities in our state, is once we received word in September that we had those funds, we followed the appropriate process and we opened a wait list on October 1st. We kept that wait list open for 45 days, and in 45 days, we had over 1,000 requests for applications. And then during the allowable application period, over 600 people submitted a full application saying, I want that voucher. We're currently in the process of reviewing all those vouchers for eligibility and are working on leasing up those 25 vouchers. Angie Hass on our team is doing a great job of leading that initiative and working with disability advocates. But we really believe, one, this shows the need for IHCDA to continue to be innovative in housing for persons with disabilities. And we believe HUD is going to put another NOFA out this year, and we're going to use this data to tell them, you know, we got 25 vouchers from you last year and over 600 people who wanted those. There's still a need in our state for this. So while we wish that the need didn't so outweigh the number of vouchers we have, we think this data will hopefully help us in requesting future funds. And the final thing I wanted to mention here is another area we've identified for future improvement related not only to the 811 vouchers, but to the Housing Choice Voucher Program as a whole, is we are working very closely with the Back Home Alliance, again, them being that primary disability advocacy group in the state. We're going to work together and have the Alliance and IHCDA host a number of landlord engagement events this coming spring and summer. So except for housing developments like those funded through the tax credit program or the home program, regular market rate housing throughout the state is not required under any federal or state law to accept a voucher. It's really up to the landlord on whether or not they want to take voucher holders. So the purpose of these landlord engagement events is really going to be to explain how the Housing Choice Voucher and the Section 811 voucher programs work, to let landlords know that these are, you know, stable rental income to you, that these are, here's how we vet the households. These are, you know, individuals who are often elderly or have a disability and are in need of housing. So really helping landlords kind of get past some of the myths or misconceptions about the Housing Choice Voucher Program that may be keeping them from willing. So we hope this will help us build a larger pool of landlords who are willing to accept those vouchers, which will then increase housing choice opportunities for people throughout the state. So that is my update for today, but I would be happy to address questions about these three programs or anything else related to our initiatives around persons with disabilities.
Amanda, I do have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
How will you narrow that 600 down to 25?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is it's essentially a first come, first served. So all of the
Okay.
applications that we've received have been, we know when they came in, they're all in the order that they came in, and staff is now going through each of those. So we take the application, we're reviewing now for program eligibility. So based on income eligibility, the requirement for the under 62 with a disability. So we're going through, and it'll basically be first come, first served. If we review the application and you meet the program eligibility, you get the first voucher. If you don't, and they'll be notified if they don't meet the program. But we're required by HUD to do, even though we know we're going to get more requests than we can possibly serve, we're required to do that waitlist open period, accept applications, then we start going through them. So Angie is doing that process now, just going in order of weeding out which ones are ineligible. The ones that are eligible, we're starting the process of contacting and working with them on helping them find a place to rent.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Board, do you have other questions?
Good program.
Yeah, sounds like you're keeping very busy.
Always,
Thank
yes,
you.
thank you. Thank you very much.
For what you do. All right, I think we are to the executive updates.
Okay.
Jake?
All right, well, thank you. I'll keep this brief. 2 weeks ago, we went, Joseph Dant, who's our legislative and industrial affairs director, he and I both went to the National Council for State Housing Agencies legislative conference in D.C. We had an opportunity to go to the Hill and meet with some members of our congressional delegation, specifically the staff of Senator Mike Braun, Senator Todd Young, Representative Jackie Wolowski, Representative Greg Pence, and Representative Jim Baird. We had a chance to meet with them, share a little bit about the work that we've done here at IHCDA. Our annual report was also shared with them. We also had some conversations about the challenges in our communities right now related to affordable housing, but also workforce housing, that we're hearing a lot of challenges with employers for their employees. So we also provided an update on the Indiana's Opportunity Zone Consortium. That's a partnership with IHCDA, and Alan was sharing a little bit more information about how we're promoting that with the QAP, and I can go into that a little bit more here in just a second. So, but we really had a great opportunity to meet with some of our leaders in DC and share a lot of the great work that we're doing here in Indiana and the impact that we're having and the importance of continuing to be engaged with what's going on in DC. So had a really productive meetings up there, so it was nice. So back to the opportunity zones. We've heard quite a bit about it today with the QAP. IHCDA is a partner with the Indiana Opportunity Zone Consortium. It is a partnership with multiple different agencies, state agencies, and not-for-profits. Specifically, it's being led by LISC here in Indianapolis, but the partners at the state level, in addition to IHCDA, is Indiana's Economic Development Corporation, the Indiana Bond Bank, the Office of Community Rural Affairs, and then also with AIM Prosperity, AIM and then Prosperity Indiana. Those are two separate entities. The Veteran Foundation and the Indiana Economic Development Association have all been working together to create the consortium. And the consortium really is a way to promote our opportunity zones across our state and to also link developments with opportunity fund investors. And with the grant from Fifth Third Bank's foundation, we were able to create a website with a portal that introduces developments to investors. So, and it has been received really well within the state. We've already seen developments come in and investors having conversations with communities and their developments. It has also gained some recognition nationally as kind of a unique, one of its kind efforts to promote opportunity zones. And I have to give a lot of credit to Samantha Spurgel here at IHCDA. Samantha's here, she's right back there. She has just done a wonderful job in leading not only IHCDA, but the consortium efforts in creating this partnership and linking developments with investors. So hats off to Samantha. She has really done a great job, and I know she's been recognized nationally in multiple different articles and things that are being written about Indiana and the Opportunity Zone. So, but with that, we're currently planning an Opportunity Zone Summit the week of July 22nd. And we're going to target a lot of local officials, specifically our mayors and our local economic development officials, and understanding how to use the various different tools that are available, not just opportunity funds, but other financing tools that can be utilized to promote economic investment into some of our most challenging neighborhoods. So we're really excited about that. Samantha's she's been doing a great job in helping design the program and the agenda and thinking about who we want to come in and speak. So again, the consortium, the Opportunity Zone, not only are we promoting it through the QAP to attract investment, but we're also thinking about it more broadly because there's really three different types of buckets that an opportunity fund can invest in. There's housing, there's economic development or commercial development, and then there's small business investments. And so thinking about those three different types of buckets and how do we continue to ensure that we're attracting investments from around the country is not just an Indiana investment opportunity. These are investors that from both coasts, from anywhere in the country who have a capital gains liability can invest in our state. So anyway, just wanted to give you an update on that and how engaged IHCDA is in the Opportunity Zone initiative here in Indiana. So we have 156 zones across our state, and they represent every type of community, small communities to our larger communities, our large cities. So With that, as I mentioned, when we went to DC and we're kind of sharing some of the challenges that our state's experiencing currently in the housing industry, specifically related to the workforce housing, IHCDA, as I shared with the board back in November in Princeton, we are working on a series of workforce housing initiatives that we plan to launch this year. And the first one that we are planning to launch, and I want to make sure that the board's aware of it because we do plan to come back to the board next month with our request for qualifications that we'd like to issue to the public, is to promote home ownership, but using a specific type of building model, and that is a partnership with the Indiana Manufactured Housing Association. Understanding many of these homes, manufactured housing industry in Indiana is really strong, and how do we use the modular housing or manufactured housing to promote workforce housing? We know that there is some stigma attached to that type of product, but how do we destigmatize some of that, but also have a positive impact on communities? And the way that we're going to promote having that positive impact on our communities is infill housing. So using our blight elimination lots and repurposing them with modular housing for homeowners at a price point that is tailored to our workforce. So we're going to be looking to launch an RFQ for 2 not-for-profits that have experience in developing and promoting homeownership, with probably about $500,000 with each not-for-profit that they would identify using some of the blight elimination program lots. Chris Neville's on our team has done an outstanding job. I don't know if Chris is here. Yep, there he is. I see him. He just tilted over. But Chris has done a great job with putting together the RFQ, but also working with our teams here on the blight elimination side to put together a website, a map that you can identify, that identifies every blight elimination lot, which we had a partnership with Sagamore Institute to do that, but overlaying it with employers and other resources that are available within the communities so that we are understanding how close these lots are going to be to anchor employers and the benefit that it can have. So just adding another source of value to our partners to understand strategically which are the best lots that we should be thinking about to promote modular housing. So I'm excited about this. Hopefully this will come to you next month. So speaking of next month, we do have the audit committee meeting coming up on April 10th. BKD is finalizing the single audit this year for us, and we're planning to meet on April 10th with the audit committee and then have BKD present their single audit report out at the April 25th board meeting. So we're preparing for that. So speaking of the April 25th board meeting this year, it will be in Martinsville at the retreat at Mineral Springs. The retreat at Mineral Springs in Martinsville was highlighted in the IHCDA Winter Magazine. It is 3 historic buildings in downtown Martinsville. One of them is actually on the courthouse square that have been preserved and repurposed for affordable housing. And we get a chance to visit. I think we might be able to chance to go visit all 3, but we're definitely having our meetings in one of the buildings in downtown Martinsville. So we're really excited to be able to host, Martinsville be able to host us there. So that'll be on April 25th. So that's my update for this month.
All right, thank you very much. Board, do you have any questions for him? Is there any other business for the board? If not, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned at 11:03. Thank you.